Hi, I'm Jonathan Leeman. Welcome to this episode of Pastoring, and I almost called it something else. Welcome to this episode of Pastoring in a Pandemic, a daily conversation that I have with different friends of mine about pastoring in this unusual time. And today I am delighted to be having a conversation with my good friend, Mez McConnell. Mez is a pastor at Nidri Community Church. He is the leader, the president. What are you at 20 Schemes? Do you have a title there, Mez?
I am the director.
Director of 20 Schemes, author of several books, which I would commend to you. And again, Mez, thank you for joining us, brother.
No worries, man. I didn't realize we were friends. I feel privileged.
Come on now. I wondered how long it would take for the mocking to start.
No mocking, so we're being serious, right?
Right out of the gate. Well, let me ask you this. We're low budget. We don't have music coming on. So we got to provide our own music here. What's your entrance music? What's your walk-on music?
Who let the dogs out?
How does that go?
And I'd come out topless.
Can you sing that for us? How does that go?
Who let the dogs out? You. Oh yeah.
There we go.
I intend to do that at T4G one year.
You should.
I should.
You just did it right now. This
you.
is a warm-up. So we're going to let the dogs out in this conversation.
Nice, but no cussing.
As we think about evangelism, but to sort of set the stage for pastoring, or rather evangelizing in this particular moment.
Yeah.
I want to think about a comment somebody made to me. I'm having this conversation with a brother online about civil disobedience, and he made the remark. I thought it was interesting. He made the remark that where you are is going to affect how you view what's necessary, what's needed in this pandemical moment. So, as he put it, if you're kind of in a comfortable, financially secure, middle-class context, you're going to view things one way. Whereas if you're in a economically deprived, maybe high spiking suicide rates, high proclivity to addiction, high domestic abuse situations, you're going to view this pandemic moment and what's necessary differently. And that makes intuitive sense to me. But any comment on that, brother?
Well, we see it here. So I live and work in the schemes, just so people know. The schemes are like sort of combination of the projects, trailer parks,
American projects.
Yeah, American Indian reservations. My scheme's 200 years old. People have lived there a long time, so it's high concentration of people in a very, very small area, and we haven't seen any real difference from social separating. Our neighbours are still out drinking, having barbecues, and lots of friends out. While I've got other members of my 13th year.
And 20 Schemes began how many years ago?
6.
Okay. And I love the ministry, grateful for the good work you guys are doing. They can learn more about 20 Schemes at 20schemes.org.
20schemes.com, yeah.
.com, okay. All right, so what you have is a situation where in certain segments of your congregation, evangelism might look one way, and in another section of your congregation, based on different expectations for social distancing, it might look a different way. Is that what you're describing?
You have to remember the greatest majority of my church are people who live in the scheme. And so it's very hard to socially distance if you live in a block of flats, or whatever you would call them, apartment buildings, where there's, 1,000 other people there, in and out. It's different if you live in a semi-detached home, away from all the crowding, and you can sit behind your fence and put the car in the garage and sit in your house. They're two very different worlds. And so the policing and the understanding of, how we live and minister to those two different groups is very, very different indeed.
Okay, so I live on a cul-de-sac. I mean, I'm looking out a window here onto a cul-de-sac in which houses are, as you said, separated. Yeah. And if I were to go up to the door of any of my neighbors, they would expect me to stand back away. It'd be a little awkward. And what you're saying to me, if I understand correctly, in some of these scheme housing in flats and apartments, people are happy for you to walk right in.
Yeah, well, people are already in their gardens. It's a bit almost like the project, where people sit on a stoop and all of the boys are there and hanging out. And So people are hanging out in their back gardens, sitting and drinking and chatting and hanging out. Nothing has really changed. It's a culture. If a scheme guy would come up and they'd hug me, and we don't
Mhm.
really shake hands. They'd give me a hug and say what's happening. But if I was talking like to some of my more middle class members, there would be no touching. There'd be definitely social distance. And it's not a problem to me. It's just interesting in a church like mine how that culture's
Yeah, no doubt.
very,
Are
very
you guys
clear.
are you guys are you guys wearing masks?
Nah. So I mean, again. So a lot of my people in my church will wear masks. When we go out to the shops because you're allowed to go shopping a few times a week in the UK. You'll see people wearing masks and rubber gloves and all that. But yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, most of us don't bother. I mean, they don't really protect you from anything. I think it's kidology, all that stuff myself. But.
Okay, we'll leave that conversation for another day. Um, how many elders do you have, and how many staff
This
members do you have?
um,
Pastoral staff, and just
elders, yeah,
elders in general.
elders. There would be 6 of us
Okay, and pastoral staff, you and
in terms of I don't.
who's full time paid to be a pastor, to be an
Oh
elder in
yeah,
your church?
4 of them are full time, including me.
Okay, gotcha.
But
And what
there
kind
would
of
be some of them would be responsible for other plants. So there'd be an
okay,
elder of Nidri with a particular responsibility for instance, to the scheme next door to Nidri. So
oh, I see.
there's not a church there yet, but they still operate within Nidri, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, so how are you guys thinking about evangelism in this moment?
Not really that much differently than we've thought about it before. The schemes are intensely spiritual places, not Christian, but supernaturalistic. And so in that way, they're very different than the sort of postmodern, post-Christian, middle class intellectual mindset of Europe. See a lot of writers writing about post-Christian Europe. It always amuses me because they're writing about a particular class of people, which isn't ours. So we probably get more intensive conversations now than ever before. For instance, we did a Zoom Bible study. I mean, people were saying or asking lots of questions, and so my co-pastor Andy said, "Look, I'll do a Zoom Bible study, just go through the gospel for 6 weeks or whatever, however long this thing lasts, and we'll do that." And 30 unbelievers logged on,
Hmm.
which doesn't seem a lot to you, but trust
No,
me.
that seems phenomenal. It's great.
Okay, in the context of Europe, it's huge. These are all, and these people, but all people who would be known, have had conversations. We live here, so we're known people for years. People you'd never think, you never come near a church, but they've been logging on to do evangelistic Bible study that way. We also provide a service to the community where we give out, I'm not sure how many, but anywhere between 600 and 800 meals a week to
Your church does.
so people in our community who can't get out, like the elderly, there's a lot of people with mental health illnesses, a lot of people who've got disabilities, and so we take it's like a meal pack where there's enough for three meals a day. We take a pack a day. We get it from a local farm, and that's opened up a lot of opportunities in terms of talking to people
Mhm.
on the doorstep. Um, about what we're doing, and a lot of people we wouldn't necessarily have touched as a church prior to the pandemic is opened up a lot of gospel avenues for us, massively, in fact. So I would say we've benefited a lot by this pandemic, surprisingly.
Now, you personally are high risk,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Does that mean it's harder for you to get out and have these kind of door-to-door conversations?
yeah. So I haven't been. And so we've got a team of people. I think there's about 20 or so members. They rotate. So my wife goes out twice a week. She either picks up the food or drops off the food. There's a whole system.
Yeah.
We've got a family just down the road from us whose 2-year-old's got cancer, and the kid's massive high risk. And so so whoever people who deliver that take all the precautions, the mask, the gloves. We don't go in, but there's a lot of people here.
Hmm.
at a lot of risk. And so, as I said, we found it's been a great opportunity for us to serve our community. Now, it's not like blatant evangelism as like our Zoom thing, but we are having lots of gospel conversations because people want to know who we are, where we're from. And unlike Middle England, that is very polite and is not really interested in your business, people here are. They want to know about the church. What do you do? What do you believe? So it's a much easier flowing conversation.
I remember an article you wrote talking about how sometimes often it's easier to have gospel spiritual conversations with people in the schemes.
Oh, easy.
Because they're I think, as you put it, are more aware of their sin. It's like,
yeah,
there's no doubt I'm a sinner. I mean, I've been in and
yeah.
out of juvie or whatever, and
yeah.
and there's not kind of the secular college educated aversion
Yeah.
to that sort of thing, which is obviously helpful in some
And
ways.
life can be brutal and short here. I mean, we had 10 people connected to our church die in the final 3 months of last year, and none over 40.
Yeah.
Maybe one. So it's a different world. It's a different, and we know from the police. We know from the police that suicide attempts have shot up since the pandemic in our community. Child abuse, assault in the home. Women being beaten. All these things have shot up, and so there's a real concentration of need.
So the pandemic is heating things up culturally, socially.
Yeah, well, if you think
Correct.
about it, so we're in a high risk area. So let's just take one example of children in our community. We're in what was called a high risk. We're an area of need, whatever. And so a high proportion of children under the age of, let's say, 10 in this community prior to the pandemic, their only main sustenance of the day would have been if they went to their local school. And had a breakfast. They call them breakfast clubs, and had a meal. That all stopped. So when the schools were shut down, these kids were going back to abusive homes and getting nothing. And so we've had to think smart on our feet, and we came up with a delivery service that ensured that people got something.
So a lot of that activity that's going on, you talked about Andy's Zoom studies, which are evangelistic. You talked about 700 meals a week and so forth, that sort of stuff. Are you organizing that centrally? Well, I mean, I guess the Andy's Bible study is one thing, but other stuff going on, are you guys organizing that centrally? Or is that just kind of organic happening?
Yeah, so I'm not organizing it.
Life?
It's not me organizing it. It's the brainchild of a lady in a women's worker in our church called Tasha. One of our first ever converts, Indigenous girls from years ago. And so we're working in partnership with a number of the social services department who will ring us and say, look, this family's at risk, etc. Could you go drop them some food off? We're working with a couple of local community bodies who have got lots of people in need, but they don't have the bodies that the church has and the structural wherewithal to get the food out. And so we're working in partnership with them, really. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Do you see other stuff happening in your congregation that hasn't happened before because of the pandemic? Or is it really kind of, well, we're just doing what we've always done?
Yeah, we're just doing our thing. I mean, some people will be having a different experience than others. If you live within the scheme, is going to be far different than some of our members who live out with the scheme in more middle class, affluent communities. And so their experience. And then obviously I've got a chemist, I've got nurses, I've got people who are on the front line, as we say here in the National Health Service, who are having an altogether different experience. And so it's just trying to pastor and encourage people with whatever context they find themselves within our church to just be looking out for those opportunities to share Christ if they can.
Yeah. Any good evangelism stories of late for us? Anything you've seen?
I mean, we hear them all the time. Again, people. Yeah, I mean, there's. This is going to be out on the web somewhere, isn't it?
This is live, man. Right
yeah.
Now,
well, I just don't want to. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, there is stories, but some of these people are so interconnected with other people. I just don't want to.
No, that's cool.
Put it out there live, but yeah, we're seeing people who have been massively resistant, whose family members have been saved for many years here, massively resistant to the gospel. People you thought there's no way. I mean, people's families rejected them, and these families, in seeing what the church is doing, some have actually joined into some of our online Bible studies for the gospel. So
That's awesome. Praise the Lord.
We're seeing
The other
things.
day, right over there is my mailbox. I'm looking at it. A letter was addressed to me, and a sweetly handwritten note from some neighbor who apparently is a Jehovah's Witness, uh, saying that she wanted to talk with me about spiritual things and looking forward to the end of this. And on the one hand, I felt a combination of things. One, just like frustration with Jehovah's Witnesses are doing it. Two, I appreciated her tender care for me in seeking to reach out to me, right, with the things that she believes are true and precious. The third thing, however, I felt was some level of conviction. I'm not leaving letters in people's mailboxes. I'm not taking advantage of the time in that way. Any
One of the early things we did actually was we made little leaflets that said, look, this is a difficult time for many people. If you're unable to get out, if you're feeling alone, if you can't get to the doctors for your medication, a lot of people are on medication for various things. If you can do some shopping for you, if you want some help, you just want someone to talk to, please ring this number. And we gave people a helpline church number, and that has been rung hundreds of times. Why people just lonely, want someone to talk to, and or needed help. And so we found that's been really, really effective. And the fact that so many of my members live in community has made that so much easier. And so even when this is over, it's not like, well, that's just stuff we did during the pandemic. Let's go back to what we were doing. We've actually have built a whole web of strong relationships with people that, because we live here, we'll see them almost daily. So that can only be good, right?
Oh, that's fantastic. What you got a lot of pastors. I've been talking to different pastors, and a lot of them are feeling overburdened, burned out.
Yeah.
But just caring for their flock, for some, even the demands of that have gone up. Any challenge, encouragement you want to offer any pastors on this topic of evangelism?
Yeah, I mean, people are so different in their makeup, right? I mean, everybody's skilled, everybody's different, aren't they? Everybody's gift set and skill set is different. I don't kill my people with, you've got to be like doing this kind of evangelism or doing that. I always encourage my guys, look, operate within your sphere of influence evangelistically. Mm-hmm. Don't be feeling bad because they're delivering all these meals, but you live outside Niddry and you're working 15 hours in the hospital every day and you don't get much chance to do anything with a mask on. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I think we've got to have less of a guilt complex around this stuff. Equip your men. Our job is to prepare God's people for works of service as pastors. And so instead of us heaping all the burden on us, I think we equip them, encourage our people to carry out task of mission and evangelism. And people actually surprise you in a crisis. They really do. I think people who are quiet and perhaps a bit on the edges, you see rise actually to the occasion. I've been surprised by a few of my members. I thought, okay, they've been bold and courageous. So that's what I would say. In terms of pastoring our people, we've spread that out. Every pastor has a Zoom call every Wednesday night with our people, and that's because it's like we've got 10 or 11 people each. That's a time when we talk about how can we pray, what you're doing evangelistically, can we help you, how can the elders help you or the church help you, the stuff we can be doing, or and we found as elders and then elders we Zoom call every Monday just to talk about it. What can we be doing about this person or that person? Is there something we're missing or we could be adding? So that's how we're trying to do it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My last question, my final question for everybody in one of these conversations is, supposing we're getting out of this a couple of years from now, 2-3 years from now, maybe we won't. Lord willing, we will. Yeah. You're looking back on this time. What is it you want to have learned about the Lord?
Yeah, here, listen, I don't care if we do or we don't. Makes no odds to me whatsoever.
Do or don't what? Don't do or don't what?
Go back to what normalcy or get out of it. It doesn't bother me. Okay. It doesn't change my mission, doesn't change what the Lord has put me here to do, which is pastor the sheep that he's given me to look after. encourage them, equip them, send them out. I hope I'm still as faithful and sticking close and trusting in Jesus and the sovereignty of God, even if it gets 10 times worse, or even if it gets 10 times better. I just want to have learned that God, by his Spirit, just continues just to keep me being faithful, doing the simple things well. It's not a hard crack, this pastoring, Mark, is it? Love Jesus, love your people, share the gospel, and then die. I'll just take that. So,
Amen. Good words to conclude on, brother. Thank you so much for your time.
no
Love
worries,
talking to
bud.
you.
Good to see you, man.